All right, so let's ditch those like dusty old flashcards
Oh, yeah.
and dive into something a bit more exciting.
Okay.
Today, we're going deep on those everyday English conversations.
Right.
You know, the kind you have at the cafe, the store, just out and about living your life?
Yeah.
But here's the twist. We're not just learning words.
Right.
We're uncovering the secrets behind them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that even simple phrases
Yeah.
can reveal a lot about a culture's values
Yeah.
and communication styles.
Exactly. And I have to admit, sometimes I trip up on those subtle differences.
Oh, yeah.
Like I once tried to compliment someone on their cheap outfit.
Hmm.
Let's just say it didn't go over so well.
Oh, no.
Luckily, we have an expert here to help us navigate these tricky waters.
Yeah.
Think of this deep dive as your guide to not just speaking English,
Right.
but understanding it like a native.
It's about moving beyond textbook phrases
I love that.
and getting to the heart of how language is actually used
Yeah.
in real-world situations.
Okay, let's start with a category we use every single day.
Okay.
Multiple times a day, greetings. We've got hello, good morning, afternoon, evening, how are you?
Uh-huh.
All those friendly icebreakers.
Yeah.
But is it ever okay to skip a greeting in English? Like
Yeah.
if you're in a rush
That's a great question.
or with close friends.
Well, greetings are generally considered polite.
Yeah.
There are definitely situations where they can be omitted.
Yeah.
For example, if you're constantly bumping into the same colleague,
Oh, yeah.
throughout the day, a quick nod or smile
Right.
might suffice after the initial good morning.
Okay.
It's all about reading the social cues.
So it's not just about knowing the words.
Yeah.
It's about knowing when to use them
Absolutely.
and when not to.
Right.
Now, I'm always curious about the little words that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Take please and thank you. They seem simple enough,
Okay.
but I've heard they hold a special significance in English-speaking cultures.
Absolutely. In many cultures,
Yeah.
politeness is reserved for special occasions or formal settings.
Okay.
But in English-speaking cultures, please and thank you
Yeah.
are used constantly, even for small transactions or
Yeah.
casual interactions.
So it's like a built-in way of showing respect,
Yeah.
no matter how small the interaction.
It really is.
It's those tiny details that can really help you integrate into the culture.
Uh-huh.
Now, once we've exchanged greetings and pleasantries,
Right.
we usually move on to, well, talking about ourselves.
Yeah.
This is where words like name, age, job, and hobby come into play.
Sure.
But is it considered rude to ask someone's age in English?
Mm.
I know in some cultures it's a sensitive topic.
It can be a bit tricky.
Right.
While it's not necessarily taboo,
Okay.
it's generally considered more polite
Yeah.
to avoid asking someone's age directly,
Right.
especially in casual conversation.
Yeah.
There are other ways to get a sense of someone's age without being so blunt.
Okay, good to know. It's all about those subtle social cues again.
Yeah, it is.
Now let's talk about those words that describe our daily routines. Wake up, eat, go, buy, sleep.
Right.
These seem pretty straightforward, but
Uh-huh.
I'm guessing there's more to them than meets the eye.
You're right. While these verbs are essential for describing basic actions,
Mm-hmm.
the real magic happens when you start combining them with other vocabulary
Okay.
to create more complex sentences.
Yeah.
Instead of simply saying eat, you could say, I usually eat breakfast around 8 a.m.
Oh.
Or I'm craving Italian food tonight.
So it's like building a language pyramid,
Yeah.
starting with those foundational verbs
Right.
and then adding layers of detail and nuance.
Exactly.
I love it.
And as you build those layers, you start to sound more fluent and natural.
Uh-huh.
You're no longer just stringing words together.
Right?
You're expressing yourself with clarity and precision.
Speaking of clarity, let's move on to a situation where clear communication is essential. At the store, we're talking about words like price, cheap, expensive, size, and change.
Mm,
But here's the thing.
yeah.
I often struggle with the difference between cheap and inexpensive.
Oh, yeah.
They seem to mean the same thing,
Yeah.
but I know there's a subtle distinction.
There
Can you
is.
break it down for us?
Absolutely.
That's
While both words refer to something that costs little cheap, often implies low quality.
okay.
It can even be a bit insulting if used to describe someone's belongings.
Oh,
Inexpensive, on the other hand, simply means affordable.
right.
and doesn't carry the same negative connotation.
So if I want to compliment someone on finding a great deal,
Yeah,
inexpensive is the way to go.
exactly.
It's amazing how one word can change the entire tone of a conversation.
It really shows how word choice can make
Yeah.
a big difference in how you come across to others.
Okay, I'm feeling ready to hit the shops
Right.
with my newfound vocabulary. But before we go on a spending spree, let's take a detour to a topic that's always on my mind. Food.
Ah, yes, the language of deliciousness.
Exactly.
Right.
This category includes words like menu, order, bill, delicious, and of course, water.
Of course.
But I'm curious,
Uh-huh.
is there a specific etiquette around asking for the bill
Yeah.
in English-speaking cultures?
There are definitely some cultural nuances to be aware of.
Okay.
In some cultures, it might be considered rude
Oh,
for the diner to initiate the request for the bill.
right.
However, in many English-speaking countries,
Ah,
it's perfectly acceptable to signal to the server
yeah.
that you're ready for the bill.
Okay, good to know. I always want to make sure I'm following the local customs.
Yeah.
Now let's imagine we've just finished a delicious meal.
Okay.
I'm full of
Wow.
content and ready to explore the city.
Right.
But first I need to figure out how to get around.
Yeah.
This is where our directions and travel vocabulary comes in handy.
This category is all about navigating your surroundings, whether you're a seasoned globetrotter or simply exploring your own neighborhood.
We're talking about words like left, right, street, bus stop, station, and that trusty old map.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
In this age of smartphones,
Yeah.
do people even use maps anymore?
Hmm.
I feel like everyone just relies on GPS.
You're right. Technology has definitely changed the way we navigate.
Yeah.
But even with GPS,
Uh-huh.
it's still helpful to have a basic understanding of directions.
Right?
What happens if your phone battery dies or you lose signal?
That's a good point. I definitely don't want to be caught in a foreign city without any sense of direction.
Yeah,
It's like being lost at sea without a compass.
exactly. And besides,
Uh.
knowing the language of directions allows you to engage with locals
Uh-huh.
and get their recommendations.
Okay.
You might discover hidden gems you wouldn't find on a map.
That's so true. It's about more than just getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It's about experiencing the journey and connecting with the people and places around you.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It really captures the essence of why language learning is so enriching.
Yeah.
It opens up new avenues for exploration and connection.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired to dust off my map reading skills.
Great.
Now let's move on to a category that's all about expressing ourselves, expressing feelings.
This is where we tap into the emotional landscape of language,
Uh-huh.
using words like happy, sad, tired, hungry, and excited.
But I've noticed that in English, sometimes we use food metaphors to
Yes.
describe our feelings, like saying, I'm starving when we're really hungry.
Right.
Or, that's cheesy, when something is overly sentimental.
Yeah.
Are these just quirky expressions, or is there a deeper meaning behind them?
I think it speaks to the close connection between our physical sensations
Okay.
and our emotional states.
Right.
Food metaphors provide a vivid and relatable way to express complex emotions.
That's so interesting. It's
Yeah.
like our language is infused with the flavors of our experiences.
Right.
Now, before we get too carried away with metaphors,
Okay.
let's ground ourselves in a more practical category.
Right.
Numbers and time.
These are the building blocks of schedules, appointments, and deadlines.
Right.
Mastering numbers and time expressions
Yeah,
is essential for navigating everyday life.
absolutely. We're talking numbers, days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the whole gang,
Yeah.
months of the year.
Yeah.
And words like time itself.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any common mistakes people make when talking about time in English?
Mm.
I know I sometimes mix up in, on, and at.
Those prepositions can be tricky.
Yeah.
A common mistake is using in for specific days when it should be on.
Oh.
For example, we say on Monday,
Right.
not in Monday.
Yep.
Similarly,
Yeah.
we use at for specific times like at 8 p.m.
Great tips. I'm definitely going to pay closer attention to those prepositions from now on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up part 1 of our deep dive with a category that's all about sparking conversations. Common questions.
Asking questions is an art form.
Mm-hmm.
It's about showing genuine interest,
Yeah.
inviting others to share their thoughts and experiences,
Right.
and creating a dynamic flow of communication.
We're talking about those classic conversation starters, like what's your name?
Mhm.
Where are you from?
Yeah.
How old are you?
Right.
What do you do? And do you like?
Sure.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
I know it's polite to ask questions,
Okay.
but are there any topics that are considered off limits in English-speaking cultures?
Hmm.
Like when you're first getting to know someone.
That's a great question. And it really depends on the context
Yeah.
and your relationship with the person.
Right.
However, there are certain sensitive topics
Okay.
that are generally best to avoid,
Right.
especially when you're first getting to know someone.
Okay. Good to know. It's always better to err on the side of caution when it comes to sensitive topics.
Uh-huh.
All right. That wraps up part 1 of our deep dive into essential English vocabulary. We've covered a lot of ground, from greetings to questions,
Yeah.
but we've just scratched the surface.
Right. Welcome back to our deep dive into essential English vocabulary.
Right.
You know, it's been really interesting exploring the cultural nuances
Yeah.
behind these seemingly simple words and phrases.
I know, right? It's like we're cracking the code of everyday English.
Yeah.
But now I'm wondering,
Huh?
how do we actually remember all this new vocabulary? It feels like a lot to absorb.
Right. That's where the real learning magic happens.
Yeah.
Putting those words into practice. Let's be honest.
Right.
What good is a toolbox full of shiny new tools if you never use them?
You're totally right. It's like having a fancy sports car and leaving it in the garage.
Exactly.
So how do we get this language engine running smoothly? Any tips for making those words stick?
One of the most effective methods is spaced repetition.
Okay, space repetition. That sounds a bit technical.
Yeah.
Break it down for me. How does it actually work?
It's all about outsmarting our forgetful brains. Instead of cramming all those words at once and hoping they magically stick, you space out your review sessions over time.
Right.
This gives your brain a chance to move information from short-term to long-term memory.
Ah, so it's like planting seeds and then nurturing them with consistent watering and sunshine,
Exactly.
instead of just dumping a bucket of water on them once and hoping for the best.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like plants need different amounts of care at different stages of growth, your vocabulary needs regular review to truly flourish.
So how can we actually apply spaced repetition to language learning?
Right.
Are we talking old school flashcards, or are there more modern approaches?
Flashcards are definitely a classic tool,
Right?
but these days there are fantastic digital flashcard apps
Oh, yeah.
like Anki or Quizlet that can make the process even more engaging and personalized.
Ooh, I love those apps. You can add pictures, audio recordings. It's like having a mini language lab in your pocket.
Yeah.
But beyond flashcards, are there other ways to solidify those words and phrases in our memory?
Absolutely. Think about it. You probably learned your native language through constant exposure and interaction, right?
Right, right.
So why not apply that same principle to English? That's where immersion comes in.
Okay, immersion sounds a bit like diving headfirst into a pool of English.
Yeah.
How can we create that immersive environment for ourselves,
Right.
especially if we're not living in an English-speaking country?
The beauty is you don't have to pack your bags and move across the world.
Right.
Immersion can happen right where you are.
Yeah.
Watch English language movies and TV shows. Listen to music and podcasts. Hey, you're already doing that right now.
Right.
Even reading English books and articles
Yeah.
can create that immersive experience.
And let's not forget the power of conversation.
Absolutely.
I know finding opportunities to chat with native speakers can be tricky,
Yeah.
but with the internet, it's easier than ever to connect with people from all over the world.
You're so right. There are online language exchange groups,
Yeah.
language partner apps, and even virtual conversation classes.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think you could be having a conversation with someone on the other side of the world
Right.
while sipping your morning coffee.
It's mind-blowing,
Right.
but I think it's important to emphasize that immersion doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Right.
You don't have to suddenly switch your entire life to English.
Yeah.
It's about finding small, enjoyable ways to incorporate the language into your daily routine.
I completely agree. Start with something you already enjoy.
Yeah.
Maybe watching a favorite TV show with English subtitles,
Right.
or listening to an English podcast while you're cooking dinner. The key is to make it feel natural and enjoyable,
Right.
not like a chore.
So instead of forcing yourself to study grammar rules,
Right.
you're actually having fun while learning.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of fun, I think there's another key ingredient to successful language learning: a positive mindset.
Right.
It's easy to get discouraged when you hit a roadblock,
Yeah.
but I've found that attitude makes all the difference.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Language learning is a journey, not a race.
Right.
There will be bumps along the way, but it's crucial to approach those challenges with a positive and growth-oriented attitude.
So how can we cultivate that positive mindset,
Hmm.
especially when we're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed? Any tips for bouncing back from those language learning slumps?
One helpful strategy is to focus on your progress.
Okay.
No matter how small it may seem,
Right.
celebrate those little victories.
Yeah.
Did you learn a new word today? Fantastic.
Right.
Did you manage to order your coffee in English without fumbling over your words? High five.
I love that. It's about shifting our perspective from perfection to progress
Exactly.
and recognizing that every small step forward is a step closer to fluency.
Exactly. And it's also helpful to remember that mistakes are a natural part of the learning process.
Yeah.
In fact, they're often our best teachers.
Right.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Uh,
Embrace them as opportunities to learn and grow.
that reminds me of a time when I was first learning English.
Uh-huh.
I was so terrified of making mistakes
Right.
that I would rehearse everything I wanted to say in my head
Yeah.
before I actually said it out
Oh,
loud.
I could definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
I used to spend so much time overthinking every sentence
Right.
that I would miss out on the actual flow of conversation.
But eventually I realized that I was holding myself back.
Yeah.
Once I let go of that fear and just allowed myself to make mistakes,
Right.
it was like I unlocked a whole new level of confidence and fluency.
That's such a great example.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your mindset from being afraid of making mistakes
Yeah.
to embracing them as valuable learning opportunities.
Exactly. And remember, everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. It's
Right.
part of what makes language so dynamic and interesting.
Absolutely.
So if you stumble over a word or phrase, don't beat yourself up.
Right.
Just laugh it off and keep going.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's about enjoying the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Right.
Now, we've talked about spaced repetition immersion and a positive mindset.
Uh-huh.
But I know our listeners are probably wondering how to put all these strategies into action.
You read my mind. Let's get specific.
Okay.
What are some actionable steps our listeners can take today
Right.
to start boosting their English vocabulary?
All right. Here are a few simple but powerful ideas.
Okay.
First, choose one or two of the vocabulary categories we discussed that resonate with you.
Okay.
Create a set of flashcards for those words and phrases
Right.
using either good old-fashioned index cards or a digital app.
Okay. That's a great starting point. It feels manageable, not overwhelming.
Right.
What's next?
Next, carve out just 10 to 15 minutes each day to review those flashcards.
Okay.
Remember, consistency is key.
Right.
Even a short review session can make a big difference in the long run.
It's like that saying, a little bit often goes a long way.
Exactly.
Okay, so flashcards check. What about immersion?
For immersion, pick one English language activity that you genuinely enjoy.
Right.
Whether it's watching a TV show,
Uh-huh.
listening to a podcast,
Yeah.
reading a book,
Right.
or chatting with a language partner.
Okay.
Commit to doing it for at least 30 minutes each day.
That sounds doable. It's about finding those little pockets of time to connect with English
Yeah.
and make it a natural part of your daily life.
Exactly.
Oh.
And finally, the most important tip of all,
Okay.
be patient with yourself.
Right.
Language learning takes time and effort.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight.
Right.
Just keep practicing, stay curious, and trust the process.
I love that. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And speaking of marathons, I feel like we've covered so much ground already.
We have.
But before we dive into part 3,
Okay.
I think it's important to acknowledge that learning a new language can be a vulnerable experience.
It definitely requires courage and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. You're putting yourself out there trying something new.
Yeah.
And it's natural to feel a bit self-conscious at times.
Right.
So to all our listeners out there who are on this language learning journey,
Yeah.
be kind to yourselves.
Yes. Celebrate your wins, embrace your mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and remember that you're not alone in this.
Right.
There are millions of people around the world learning English,
Yeah.
and we're all in this together.
It's like a global community of language learners, all supporting and encouraging each other.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, this conversation has really got me thinking about the deeper purpose of language learning.
It's about so much more than just memorizing words and grammar rules, isn't it?
Exactly. It's about connection, communication, and expanding our understanding of the world and ourselves.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a key aspect of language learning that we haven't touched upon yet.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
The power of connection.
Connection. Now, that's a powerful word. And I think it's something we often overlook when we're focused on all those grammar drills and vocabulary lists.
It's easy to get caught up in like the mechanics of language
Right.
and forget that the ultimate goal is to communicate
Yeah,
and connect with others.
exactly. And that connection can happen on so many
All
levels.
right.
From a simple exchange of greetings to a deep, meaningful conversation that bridges cultures and perspectives.
Absolutely.
But I have to admit, sometimes I struggle with the unspoken rules of conversation.
Hmm.
Like, when is it my turn to speak?
Right.
How do I know if I'm dominating the conversation or not listening actively enough?
The art of conversation flow.
Yeah.
It's something we often learn intuitively in our native languages,
Uh-huh.
but it can be a bit trickier when you're
Right.
navigating a new language.
So, are there any tips or tricks we can use to master this conversational dance? I
Yeah.
really want to avoid those awkward silences or those moments where I accidentally interrupt someone.
One of the most important aspects of conversation flow is turn taking.
Okay.
It's like a graceful exchange
Yeah.
where each person has the opportunity to express their thoughts
Mm.
and listen attentively to the other person.
So, it's about finding that rhythm and balance, right?
Exactly.
Not rushing to fill every silence,
Right.
but also being aware of those subtle cues
Yeah,
that signal it's our turn to speak.
exactly. And it's amazing how much we convey through nonverbal cues
Yeah.
during turn
Yeah.
taking,
Right.
a slight nod,
Uh-huh.
a raised eyebrow,
Okay.
even a pause can signal that we're ready to speak
Right.
or that we're yielding the floor to someone else.
It's like a secret language of gestures and expressions.
It is.
Now, I know active listening is crucial in any conversation,
Uh,
but I'm wondering if there are specific techniques
yeah.
we can use to become better listeners,
Right.
especially when we're focused on understanding a new language.
Active listening is about more than just hearing the words.
Uh-huh.
It's about truly engaging with the speaker
Right.
and demonstrating that you're present and interested,
Okay.
making eye contact,
Yeah.
nodding,
Yeah.
and asking clarifying questions.
Yeah.
All these actions show that you're not just passively absorbing information,
Okay.
but actively participating in the conversation.
So it's about creating that sense of connection and mutual understanding, not just waiting for our turn to speak,
Right.
but genuinely absorbing what the other person is saying.
Precisely. And active listening also involves responding in a way that shows you've understood
Yeah.
and empathize with the speaker's perspective.
Right.
It's about validating their feelings, even if you don't necessarily agree
Okay.
with their point of view.
That's such a powerful point. It's about creating a safe space for dialogue
Right.
where everyone feels heard and respected regardless of their opinions or backgrounds. It
Exactly.
reminds me of that saying, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
And one of the most rewarding aspects of mastering conversation flow
Yeah.
is the ability to connect with people on a deeper level, to truly engage in meaningful conversations that transcend language barriers.
I love that idea. It's like we're building bridges across languages and cultures, one conversation at a time.
Exactly.
And who knows, those bridges might lead to incredible friendships, collaborations, or even life-changing experiences.
It's amazing how something as simple as a conversation can have such a profound impact on our lives.
You know, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From individual words and phrases to the intricacies of conversation flow, it's been an incredible journey of exploration and discovery.
It really has. And as we wrap up this final part,
Yeah?
I want to leave our listeners with this thought.
Okay.
Language learning is a lifelong adventure. It's a journey of continuous growth, connection, and understanding.
Beautifully said. And remember, every conversation is an opportunity to practice, to learn, and to connect.
Absolutely.
So embrace those opportunities, be kind to yourselves, and enjoy the ride.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be hosting your own deep dive,
Oh, wow.
sharing your language learning journey, and inspiring others to embark on their own adventures.
That's an exciting thought. Until then, happy learning, everyone. And remember, the world is waiting to hear your voice.